come back and then from the first one. The goal of our discussions is not to resolve details tonight, is not to understand the complete logistics or even the financial implications at this point in time. It really is to gather as many ideas as possible so that the kind of group that's looking at this can better understand what are the facility needs, what are the infrastructure needs that go along with that for the next, we've loosely broken it into short term being the next 1 to 5 years, and then long term being 5 to 25 years and beyond. So we're going to take maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how discussion goes. We're going to break it down into the seasons. It seems like a logical way to start to just understand and focus discussions a little bit. So we will start with our winter season. And what I'd ask Tara to do just at the start of each section is really just to give us a sense of what the current programs are within that season, and then we can build a discussion from there. So Tara, if you wouldn't mind.
Many of you can chime in because especially with the winter season, there's so much that we've added along the way. So if I forget something, please feel free to add it. Aside from our open skiing public, we have the Kanc harbors that we've added. We have the freestyle Kanc Gibber, sorry, is what that's called, with the freestyle elementary school group, the vacation week activities, the and then we rent to private groups and have it open to LRT, as well as the pre-ski is another separate payment program is what I was trying to separate out. So the usually the schedule breaks down that LRT is here one night, grades teams here, middle school, high school, a couple nights, freestyle team a night, and then we do like the Kanc harbors, like learning to race and things like that on one night. And then we have our open nights. And then in between we will stick events like the rail jam and the big air and the Kanc kids races and the Kancathon, which is a joint fundraiser with Interact Group. Vacation week activities is, you know, as everybody knows, is day and night activities and events. What are the other things we've added over the years? Like I feel like we've added a middle school and high school race that we host. We were talking about last year at the Rail Jam, possibly merging with the other smaller mountains and doing like a series where those kids that aren't on like a freestyle team can compete with other mountains and things like that, and then we host those other mountains one night as well. So I think I've summed it up. Basically, it all falls under, we hope, 13 weeks of a beautiful winter season. Just as a note, because I feel like it wouldn't be okay to go into this discussion of future without kudos to Ryan, because he spent all summer getting us a new compressor on the pump and working with Kanc to get all that up and running. Which is going to allow us to make snow at warmer temperatures and faster and more efficient. So, you know, that's not program related, but
Great, thank you. So yes, well, Kevin, go ahead.
So you talk about those programs. Can you just, you said it's 13 weeks. Can you just walk through like what a typical week is? Like Wednesday night is, you know, hours of operation are 3 to 8, and from 5 to 6.
sure. Like a typical, now, and always the first week we open is not nights because it's usually just barely covered. Sometimes, most of the time, that week was not open, even though they will ask ski patrol every hour. But once we get open and they're back to school and we start the regular schedule, it's usually we're open Monday through Thursday, 3 to 5. We're I haven't even talked to Aaron about his race schedule yet this season, but usually it's Monday. And so after that, what it's evolved to over the 25 years that I've been here anyway of working together is that race team used to race and train during open hours. And after we have seen a couple scary moments, it went to no, let's, you know, town and school work really well together, and we staff after that so that they can train at no cost with those kids. They do get season passes here, so it contributes to the revenue as well. But so Mondays and Tuesdays are ski team. Usually it's high school, middle school, like they figure out that between the coaches. Wednesday night, oh, sorry, did I say?
The high school, middle school team and Kanc covers, they all overlap in that.
Yeah.
In that after open ski time.
Depending on what we did,
It's varied, but to five to seven. It's
Yeah.
usually the 5 to 6:45.
depends on,
Yeah.
conditions and
Yeah.
how, yeah, everybody, how excited they are. And then sometimes we've gotten so many for Kanc covers that we switched that to a
Yeah.
Thursday, 5 to
Exactly.
7 instead, because it's been so popular, so it kind of depends on the growth of those programs as well. And then Wednesdays has been the freestyle from the outdoor open, again, 3 to 5, and then 5 to 7 is freestyle. Thursdays, like I said, Kanc covers, and then Fridays, we traditionally haven't been open 3 to 5. One year, a couple of years we did after the Linwood program was done, because the after school days in March tend to dwindle in numbers, but we've looked at, depending on conditions and numbers and how much kids are coming, whether we open that day as well after the boom lesson program is done. But for those of you that don't know, our kids are really fortunate here that they bus everybody that wants to participate up for, I don't know, I'm dating myself, but when my kids did it, it was like $6 a lesson per kid. So it's very cost effective, and they teach all the kids to learn that, and some of them wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise, so. And then Friday night, we are open from 7 to 9. Saturdays and Sundays, we're open from 10 a.m. we have been open from 10 to 3 during the hot dog lunch in between. And then again, Saturday nights from 7 to 9. And then we have in the past, I think 2 years, rented to LRT on Sunday nights, because we open to the public on Friday nights instead. That used to be that other rent. A lot of that, like time frame wise, some of it is established by, it works better for grooming and stuff. If that race team is afterwards, like, could they come before? But yes, but then we need 2 hours to groom before we open to the public that night. So that's kind of been the basic layout. And then usually towards March, when things are closing down, it goes backwards. Like we close nights first when it's not safe to see the death. And then usually after school, because the numbers dwindle, basketball starts, baseball starts.
Is a lot of the staffing by volunteers or?
No, it has, per parent, it has to be paid
All
staff.
paid
Yeah, for the 3 main positions, those are the ski patrol. Anybody that deals with money has to be over 18, a paid staff member. Ski patrol, same reason, has to be over 18 and a paid staff member. And trained for all these positions, and then the hut attendant at the top, because they're operating a motor and supervising the children as well.
I know I'll speak with the ski team, we know how fortunate we are to have it, so for the staffing, a lot of times we're doubling up, you know, as coach, but also as patrol, or if needed, hut attendant, or up top to the toe, where we've kind of all been trained in every single one, so that way we can have as many opportunities to train as we can, so.
So you can think of the winter programs as 2 things. One is, are there benefits or improvements that can be made immediately, relatively short term, to make those programs better? Equally, are there programs that aren't even currently being offered that might want to be considered? I mean, this is the opportunity, if there is to be a kind of wholesale, I'll say wholesale loosely, a renovation of some sort of this facility. And now is the opportunity to potentially introduce new programs, if staffing can support it, if finances can support it. So I encourage any commentary to what can we do to make the programs currently better, but equally are there programs out there that could be added that would be of benefit to the community.
Does it have to be ski related, or like December, Christmas week? There's no AFP, there's no hoops, and they provide like a camp here for our kids, for working families, to drop our kids off. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah,
Christmas week, we are open.
Yeah, we usually open a day after
Yeah.
Christmas, yeah.
Are you allowed to drop the kids off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the 12 and under the rule still apply.
Right.
So now that the building's been open, and I tried to talk to as many parents that asked that question or had kids that were in that age group last year if possible, but yeah, absolutely. What year?
Okay, so we can drop them off December.
As long as you're good with us, I'll be in charge of your kid, yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
thank you.
And there is still a potty
Yeah,
train
I
rule.
don't know. Okay, thank you.
That's-
If Tammy's here, you're in trouble, because she's just gonna get all the candy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Vicky,
I
yes.
had two thoughts on that. The first one is I think that we should look at Friday afternoons a little bit more closely again. Because historically, we used to be at Moon for, it felt like most of the winter for that Friday winter activities. But now we have 4 Fridays. So the Fridays are generally scheduled for the 4 Fridays in January. And sometimes we get a makeup date, the first or second week in February, if we end up having a weather cancellation. But it's actually only 4 Fridays now, so we have, you know, most of February unless we have a makeup date, and then the dates in March that, you know, after school, the kids aren't going to learn.
Yeah.
So I think that would be somewhere to look. And then I've always wondered why we don't look at doing an after-school program that's Kanc specific in winter. It seems like the after-school program is like wildly popular and like fills really quickly from what I've heard from other parents. I haven't utilized it, but it's super popular and super needed. And then we have this amazing place and this opportunity for kids to come here and ski from 3 to 5. And isn't the after school program basically like 2:25 to 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always wondered why we couldn't have like a Kanc specific after school program where parents could, especially because there's a lot of kids out there that love to ski and would love to be here, but their parents aren't able to bring them after school because they're at work. And so if we had a program where, you know, people could sign up for their kids to do the after school program, that's like a Kanc after school program. And they could leave equipment in the room where we leave equipment. They could walk to the childcare center and use the vans or the buses to come here and do their after school program as like a Kanc after school program during the winter months. I feel like
Yeah.
that would be really popular. And I feel like there'd be a lot of families and kids that would be really interested in doing it. I don't know how. I mean, we already have like the staff here. I don't know how it impacts, like, do you need an additional staff member? And would that be different from staffing at the childcare center versus having an extra person here for an extra set of eyes? But in the old days, there used to be a
ran one
bus
here.
that dropped off here.
Yes,
And there were kids that bused here.
Yeah.
After school and then came here. They weren't in the after school program, but they just took the bus here and they skied until their parents came and got them. This would be a little more formalized than that, obviously, but. Just about.
This isn't a new idea, but one thing I'm noticing at patrol, and I'd like to give a little, you know, shout out to Nathan and Blair, is that, you know, we struggle to hold on to kids after age about 13. You know, either they've joined the, you know, Alpine team, or, you know, they hit the jump frequently and then, you know, get past the loon if they can and head across the street, or sadly kind of stop skiing altogether. What I appreciate, and I'm just, I guess, more saying thank you to being flexible and open to this, you know, free ski, freestyle, whatever you want to call it, park, kind of more specific programming, and working with that crew to, I know like this year, we're gonna start putting together volunteers to help maintain the park, which is great. Hopefully, that's still in discussion.
that's still, well, it's an insurance issue as well, so. they have to
Okay,
be
but
trained.
things that we can do to
Yeah,
train,
yeah.
things that we can get out there, so that way. I know conditions are hard, I know last year was difficult, but there's a lot of kids that would really love to see those elements in the ground, both rails, both boxes. You know, and some kind of jump feature, and I know that helps us kind of hold on to those. Let's just say 11 through 15-year-olds before they get their license anyway. And I think that's really cool, and I think that would be great to see that demographic, and I think also as a patroller being here, having the building back open is awesome, thank you. I think we'll start seeing that. There is a group of, let's just call them COVID kids, that kind of missed out on the, I mean, I've only been here 12 years, but seeing my kids come up through and then patrolling here, there's a big group of 2 to 4-year-olds that I know that requires a parent, or should actually be here to, like, you know, but having a warm place to come into after literally one try to exit one, you know, whatever, is super helpful. And I understand the whole COVID thing, whatever, but there's kind of a window right now in town, and I've seen it as a patroller, that we'll call them COVID kids, don't really quite have the same, I know it's, you know, nationwide, but they don't really have the same experience as my kids did when they were 2 to 4. And I think that's gonna help us as we continue to farm that program. both at the bottom, the farm program, and then doing the having the park features up and running as early as possible and maintained for that 11 to 15-year-old. Which I think that's gonna be helpful when we're talking, Stuart, you said like programming that either new or helpful, you know, to these groups, so, yeah.
Well, what you say is a nice pivot, thank you, Marcus. I mean, part of the impetus for some of this discussion too is the building we're all within that is aging and perhaps in need of substantial renovation or replacement. I mean, that's part of this discussion will determine kind of how that approach may go, how logistically that might happen, given the continuous seasonal use of this. So I would encourage any comment too to the facility itself and aspects of that could be perhaps improved upon or added to that don't even exist right now for consideration.
You know, one of the things during any event that we comment on is having 2 bathrooms. It's just saying when you serve 150 people and 2 bathrooms, it's just. But
With regards to short-term improvements, I would like to see some being part of the decision-making when it comes to the management of the mountain with regards to snow, surface, location. I tend to not say anything and get what we get because I'm so. For those of you who don't know me, Aaron Lennox, ski coach. I'm one of the ski coaches, and it would be nice to work with the preschool and say this type of venue would be really good for people that are learning to ski. The park doesn't need to go in the middle of the trail. It can go over here. And why? What is the safest place? We always run down here, but maybe we don't have to. Maybe that's not the best place. And to have those discussions instead of doing what we've always done. We're comfortable with that, but you know, thinking outside of the box. When we're having our races, when do you need snow and where? You know, how much snow depth is there? Because in drilling holes on the hill, we know what there is. And I know in like up at Loon, there's work with Shad, and we talk to him about where we need snow, where we don't, and we do that here as well. But with regard to programming and everything, I'd love to share some of my thoughts and also share some of the other people that are involved with leading programs as far as what might make it better, safer, and just a better experience.
Anyone else on the Kevin? Yes, sir.
Well, Marcus was speaking about the park features and attracting kids of that age or interest. And listening to Aaron, and you know, there's not a lot of real estate out there, and especially early season, you know, you want to deliver the best product possible as quickly as you can. But when you look at it from a terrain parks standpoint, I mean, you could put a flat box right out on the lawn right now, and blow a bunch of snow, and you could have 40 kids there, and they'll be trekking through the dirt, and they'll put their stuff on, and they'll get to it, and that is an opportunity to get going early season without having to, you know, I know there's a lot of manpower to get the hill in operation, but you can make it work early season for not a lot of output here in the base area. Make a lot of kids happy.
Stuart, if I could,
Yeah.
I love the discussion about the programming and the snow and all that, because that's what makes it go. The building, on the other hand, needs to be discussed a little more. It's a given, we need to do something with bathrooms. We definitely need more bathrooms, bigger, more functioning. There's also other things. The kitchen is a nightmare for anybody that wants to serve hot dogs to 100 kids on a Saturday. Just saying. We have rebar coming through the floor in some places. So that needs to be addressed. Space and more space and a little bit more space would be nice. Having the pool table and foosball and all that is super important to me. I love it. It's a nightmare if you're the only one down here trying to supervise and sign kids in and watch the hill and make sure nobody's killing each other upstairs or smoking in the corner or anything else. So those are some of the things I would like parents and folks and whatnot to think about. when this building was built, it was built by volunteers who just threw in materials and time and sweat and everything else and got it done. Those days are gone. We live in a way too litigious society for the town to take that kind of liability on. We can't do it. It's just not, things don't happen that way anymore, unfortunately. So do we renovate this building? Because it definitely needs some renovations. Do we replace it? Do we add on to it? Do we leave it like it is and just make it a little better? Do we want ice skating? We definitely need some sort of a covered pavilion outside in the summer to cover the kids, day camp kids from the sun, from the rain. You know, it could be beautiful 80 degrees out, pouring rain, and they're stuck inside here. They could be outside as long as they're covered, which could also serve as an ice rink in the winter, covered ice rink. Do we want to fund that or not? Those are kind of some of the things that I was looking for input on. Because, I mean, we've got the best of the best when the snow flies, there's no
You
question.
don't,
We don't,
you don't,
okay,
no. So I just spent 2 days at the NSAA trade show in Portland, and the gist of most of the sessions were climate change and everybody opening later. Parks are the last thing that get snow. I want kids to be in the park too. My kids grew up here, they were park skiers and competed nationally, and it's awesome. But you've gotta get open. Without that open, this is nothing. I think there could be some improvement on the guns. Those guys are doing a wonderful job changing the pump out this year. You're gonna see a substantial change. I think Ryan's target was like 20 degrees wet bulb to make snow. That should jump up to 27, 28 degrees this year because of the higher pressure. The guns are gonna work better. You're gonna get a little more production out of it. But if you don't have snowmaking in Target, ideal snowmaking and grooming, you need to hit it hard. You're not gonna be open for Christmas week. We just sat through sessions for the past couple of days talking about areas like Whitetail in Pennsylvania made snow 2 nights and didn't get to open. So the weather's changing. We've got a good system. I won't say it's not good, but it could improve. The building itself needs to happen as well. But when you're making snow the way Ryan does, I really like how he goes about it. The reason the park's there is because we're running out of time, and that's where the snow ends up. We're not going wall to wall because it's a time thing. And I think some consideration needs to be some improved snow guns. We've got one new gun. Wouldn't hurt to have another 1 or 2 and use the ones that are here as spares. And just you gotta hit the weather window hard and quick to get open for Christmas week. If you're not open for Christmas week, and last year was one of the worst years, struggling just to get open. This is not.
Right.
So.
I agree. I can see the necessity and the utility in thinking about what needs to happen with this building in the future. But that's a big project that's gonna cost a lot of money, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we could, be focusing on in order to just improve the experience people are having and making sure we're like continuing to be able to open. That just feels like it's, probably should be prioritized above thinking about a multi-million-dollar building replacement. We need to think about it, but we've also been talking about replacing the fire station and the police department. It's hard to imagine this is going to trump that project when we're talking about tax money in order to fund it. Like the idea of a new building is great and aspirational, and it needs to be thought about, but it feels so far in the future that maybe our priorities should be looking at what needs to be dealt with, like in the more immediate.
Yeah, that's good content, Marcus.
This is probably gonna
open a can of worms, so try to do it, you know. But I'd like to have the open-minded discussion. Because, you know, and I wasn't raised here, so I wasn't dropped off by a school bus here. But I was dropped off by a school bus at a hill that had 2 T-bars, so very similar. Looking at trying to justify a building or justify the improvements to guns and, you know, snow cats, and obviously none of this is cheap. Looking at the business plan of the Kanc rec area ski hill, which I know is different than the business plan of the after school program, or the difference of the, you know, some of the other things that we do as a rec department, you know, the soccer team, or the ski hill business plan. So like Aaron was touching on the ski hill operation plan, but also the ski hill business plan. And I know that this is such a precious resource to our locals. And I get that, and I have kids that super love it. I want to serve it. I love that. But can we justify huge spending on cats and guns and compressors and potentially new buildings without talking about diversifying our revenue? Trying to generate, I don't know what the business plan is when it comes to towns. I don't quite understand towns other than the revenue, the tax stream. But I don't know about as far as diversifying revenues, as far as like renting the facility to specific things or opening up to more passes. Could we make improvements that would move the bottom line? You know, like a building that might move the bottom line if it could be used for rentals, like an outdoor skate thing that wasn't just for the small amount of people just in town that would use it, but would it be open to rentals and, you know, broomball leagues to rent it, and, you know, it goes on. And yes, it comes with more staffing, comes with more headaches and whatever. And this is where the can of worms come. So I'm just gonna say it. Everyone just breathe in your nose, out your mouth. I'm just gonna say it. But the rope tow, though it is sacred, and I love the rope
You
tow.
can stop talking now.
I know.
Don't eat the pancake.
I know.
And you don't love that.
Okay,
And I
no
know,
worries.
in here until I die, there's a rope tow, that's
Where's
fine.
my pitchfork?
But there is a lot of adults, there's a lot of adults in this room, and there's a lot of adults in this town that don't ski with their kids here because of the rope tow. I don't know what that solution is moving forward, but that group of kids, as we know with the school, is going like this. It just is, just going.
Those people ski.
Those adults, I think they would. I think some of them would. The ones that would. I mean, that I've patrolled here now for probably about 7-ish years, 8-ish years ballpark. And the group of adults, and I know adult night has its demons. I know. I was a part of the last one. Maybe that was the problem. I shouldn't have come. But there are some things.
You bring God in.
Sorry. But I guess I'll end with like, it is a barrier to entry for an expanded group of people to diversify our revenue to help keep this. It's like that balance of at what point in time does this precious revenue become, or sorry, this precious commodity, this resource become too expensive for too little of people to enjoy it? And how do we preserve it by diversifying the revenue without it losing what it is? And I understand that the rope code going away to a high-speed T-bar that goes up from the middle and extends our skiing and gives us more trail is a curse in this town. Maybe it's thinking about that in the future, just to be honest with the fact that our group of kids that enjoy this is dwindling. And it's also just dwindling because the group of kids in this town is just
There you
dwindling.
go, that's what I was gonna say.
Right?
I think the kids
That's
in
just a
general.
reality. I don't know when that's gonna change. I'm not sure. And I know it's the elephant in the room and I understand that, but there will always be kids here. There will always be kids here. But do we have to diversify our programming and our offering to help justify the overhead of this place and keeping it going?
Well, Mark, I think part of your diversification is that we're going to pivot to shortly in the discussion is, right, we've talked around a 13-week window in winter time. So, I mean, this facility serves, for the most part, year-round. Extensive summer programs, maybe not so much in the fall, but with the ball field and stuff out here, there are programs that go well beyond just the winter months. Well, that's the driver for many. This facility serves pretty much year round. So there's various schools of thought, I guess, as to how you approach that. And are we trying to create something that may be a heavy lift and maybe too much for the taxpayers? I mean, that's ultimately where, the decision will be made. But is there a potential to diversify, so to speak, and really bring a facility up that would not only raise the winter game, but would raise the kind of game year round?
What is the skier visits and or revenue numbers for this?
Our average visits are about 5,000 a year. It's, we don't, and we could. Be a nightmare to break it down into how many. So last year was 4,293. That doesn't say like how many times Kevin Bell came to ski. It just says.
That's not
our
unique,
visits, yeah.
that's not unique.
That's just the number of times people came.
47% came from the town of Lincoln, 37% came from the town of Woodstock, and 16% came from out of town. One of the things that we haven't mentioned here, and if I may speak.
Yeah, his second question was, it makes about 20,000 in revenue. It
Yeah.
doesn't, and since I've been here for the last 25 years, so this was the last year we started doing. That's only showing, end of season revenue.
Do you have numbers before last year? I know you weren't scanning.
Yeah. So it's usually, 24, 25 was the highest, I think. So this is going, I've gone back in notebooks back into like the 89, 90.
From a visit standpoint?
Yes. Again, some of these were in a notebook before I started, and even after I started was like a ruled sheet for a couple of years, but so we've gone up from our skier visits. Probably the lowest was 1,700 in one season. And then the first year we started doing like winter carnivals and all of that again was 2006 to 2007. And in those years we bumped back up into the 5,000s, 4,400s. There's a couple of years all around that are like 32, 3,600. And then the highest I see is 2012 to 2013 was 6,245. And that was also our highest revenue. No, that was our second highest revenue. So some years we make more revenue, but we have less visits, which is always amazing to me because it depends on how many out of town passes we sell versus how many residents.
And that revenue is just strictly passes and
Yes.
season and day,
Yeah,
that doesn't include
concessions
food and
is a
beverage.
different, no concessions is a different, that's friends
Friends
around,
of
yeah,
that, okay.
So it's
But-
ticket and season pass.
yes. But it's gone anywhere from 4,000 was the lowest, those first couple of years, well, like 2,000, 3,000, and gone up to 20,500.
So what's the overhead from operations?
It's much more than that, just our insurance that we have to pay, whether we're open one day or 100 is $10,000, so. And we're at
Electricity?
the minimum, yeah, electricity is easily, well, if you add in snowmaking, that's another 10,000 a year.
Fuel,
Probably
diesel fuel,
at least 5,000, yeah, because we run the groomer as well as the engine up top, so. Yeah, and then propane to heat both buildings but since what I started to say was, since I've been here, it has not been the purpose to have this be a break-even facility. It has been to provide the residents with a valued service.
I've never heard anyone complain
Okay.
about this
Okay.
costing the
Right.
community anything at all, and
Very
we
good.
do spend a lot of money here.
Yeah.
It's,
If you figure staffing and what have you, it's well over $100,000, there's no doubt about that. But as I started to say earlier, I think Jim and Vicky said this was one of only 8 ski areas like this, community ski areas left in the state of New Hampshire. When at one time there were over 52 or 53. So I mean, it's something I think that the town should be proud of, that it has saved such an entity. You know, as Marcus said, did this school come from you, or society shall be judged by how it treats those at dawn, i.e. the children and those in the twilight of their life, i.e. the old people like myself. But the fact that we are treating the kids, you know, we're not looking at pennies, we're not looking at dollars. You know, nobody's complaining about taxes. If anybody should complain about taxes, it should be the secondary homeowners. 70% of your tax base, our tax base, my tax base, comes from secondary homeowners. People started complaining about, well, we got a new $6 million police station. Well, guess what? Riverwalk and Hampton Inn, their money from taxes are paying for the bond for that. So it's costing not me, not you, another dime out of our pockets. And so if we can work something like that to make these improvements, a number of people have offered to, you know, complete different projects here out of their own pocket. There was talk about putting a deck on this building so parents and guests, friends could watch, those that don't ski could watch their children, grandchildren ski. And that was coming out of somebody's pocket. You know, I think that was Mr. Martin offered to do that. But we said, okay, let's not do that and then have to rip it out next year because we want to put in a new bathroom or something like that. So, you know, the town, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karina or Tammy, you're on the select board. You know, we need a plan, as you know, Stuart has said, okay, how can we phase different projects in that will give us a return so that it's going to be meaningful as to what we do. So.
Just a question for clarification, is winter the only income generation to this facility?
No,
Okay.
summer camp.
Summer camp
Yeah.
contributes to this facility.
And you know, though you're right, Jack, there's very limited town-owned ski hills. There is quite a few town-owned in-ground heated pools, which I think is really similar. I don't think they're cheap. And there is quite a few of them. I know Maine one, I know New Hampshire. It'd be interesting to look at some of their models because there's no way that they're making up, you know, the difference. And like you said, it comes down to the mission of the place. You know, the mission of the place. It'd be interesting to look at some of those other models and like what you talked about, Stuart. I know that the hill that I grew up at is owned by a separate nonprofit that is called Farmington Ski, whatever. But they diversify their revenue with mountain biking and disc golf and Nordic and ice skating. So and like you said, Jack, that would come down to a mission. You know, if the mission is for our local kids and our local people between the ages of 0 and 13, then maybe disc golf and mountain biking and that kind of stuff is maybe not the route we want to take. But if it is to make it a little bit more accessible and usable and diversify a revenue stream, if that's a goal, you kind of have to come down to think of what our mission is and where we want to go for sure.
But with that, then let's pivot a little bit, unless there's any more comment on specific winter activities.
One other comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one other comment is, I think it's a shame we've lost our sledding hill. Because that was actually wildly popular that we lost, but nobody uses that sledding hill that's there.
No,
And
right,
there's-
I don't know if you can tell, but he's been working on it also.
Okay,
Yeah.
because the last couple
Yeah.
years, there have been people that have been just like, where do we go sledding? What happened to the sledding hill? And we had a lot of people that use the sledding hill, and that feels like it's something that would be cheap to fix.
Yeah, we've been working on it. He brought his own equipment here to work on that a couple days this summer.
Anytime he gets a free minute,
Yeah.
yes, that's what he does, yeah,
Ryan?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know if this would fall under the winter or spring, but is there any possible impact if they can stay open longer? When it's spring skiing season and it's nice out and kids enjoy being out there in their t-shirts and shorts and going through little clothes that form, instead they froze for 2 months, 3 months, and now they get shut off at March, whatever the second week is, or whatever, whenever you close.
No, we've been open the last weekend or last.
Right, but there's still snow coverage, I mean, can that, if there's still snow coverage, can the season?
After March, maybe?
Yeah.
It's the numbers usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard when, and I've been here when you open up and this one kid comes in the door.
Do you have those numbers? Because it hasn't felt that way the last few
The
years.
last couple of years after COVID, I would agree with you, but prior to that, we just didn't have the numbers.
I agree with Kelsey. I
Yeah.
think it would be nice if we could not just have a predetermined closing date and like other mountains do, close when the conditions require us to close. Because we're talking about a lot of money that it takes to operate this facility, but a lot of that money has to go in whether we operate for 58 days or 72 days, right? Like the insurance, like most of the snowmaking is done early in the season and that's a big expense. But in order to have our hours extended on the weekends back to what we used to have, in order to have like a couple more weekends if the conditions allow. Like it feels like the extra cost of that time would be a lot less because the initial investment's already made.
I don't think it's the cost that would be an issue, it would be staffing. You know,
But isn't staffing cost?
No, it's getting bodies here.
Availability.
Right, exactly, exactly. If you know you have a job until March 29th. And that's it, we close, and you can make other arrangements. Or it's, well, we might stay open till April 15th if we have and people can't bank on that. And it's just, that's where it becomes an issue. Not that it's impossible, but it's a struggle. That's a struggle.
Is there some rule that, the lift has to be open? Like, for instance, like the night that we do the rail jam and they all hike it. Is there some rule that the lift has to be open, to operate? So if, like what Kevin was saying earlier, like if we got to a springtime where we're having a hard time staffing, the snow up above is hard for the tow. You can't get it into the tow line. I know that's a problem a lot of times in the spring. You can't get it into the tow line to keep the tow line open. To have a couple of times where the weather's nice, it's a Saturday, whatever, to have a hikeable session with boxes and stuff, with a patroller on in a tow, in a hut, is there?
First one, they did, or we thought they were gonna have to hike up, we did it,
No, I'm not talking about the rail jam.
okay.
I'm talking about the end of the year to enjoy this place a little bit more. I know kids love to hike, like to Kevin's point, you put a little box out there on a little knoll, they're just gonna hike it. And I don't know if that maybe would be an option to think about in the end, maybe like 1 or 2 Saturdays beyond. Say this is gonna be open for this hours for hikeable, there'll be a patroller here and a hut operator, but we're not gonna have a tow operator.
Because that's a good point, usually one of the things that closes us is if you can't make it all the way up.
Yeah.
I know that's why I'm suggesting this, because I know
That's
what Brian's told me.
I love that.
Here's another point, can't you figure out, and I don't know, I'm not a snow maker, of course, I can never know how it works, but can we put more snow on the tow line to begin with? So.
We actually had a clip on it last year,
yeah.
to try to do that, and I don't wanna speak for Ryan, but to a point he can, and then, it, at some points was such a big drop off that it was actually an issue that if kids went over the other side of the toe, they went far, yeah.
So if I could speak on that, just Ryan does a real good job. The one thing that he did different was pile the snow at the bottom. And then only put up exactly what we need up through the tow line and for each exit. That way there's no snow going off on the woods. He did want to hit it a second time and we just didn't get to that point, but. You can put it there more in the beginning, but you have to hit it again later.
I know from hearing Ryan talk, I don't think maintaining that lane is that easy.
Right.
Like, it's not like a wide open area, very steep. I think we're very fortunate to have an operator like Ryan, because I don't think that tow line is the easiest to maintain.
And it just by design gets a lot of sun, so it does.
Do you have to be able to get all the way to the top for it to operate, or is it an option to stop
Yeah.
at third
Yeah.
or fourth exit or something? Because the
It's
top,
usually-
Marcus is the top. The top, that's usually the issue, it's hard to keep snow on that.
Yeah, it's a rope cut right into the dirt.
Right.
Right out.
So is it an option to stay open up to this very point, something like that, or is that not reasonable?
Aaron, do you wanna answer this, or do you?
Well, I was gonna say, yes, it's an option, you can do it.
Yeah.
You just need to put a plastic
I didn't know-
conduit bar, that's what they did at Abenaki, you just
Yeah.
drive over it.
I didn't know if there was a rule of the insurance or something
No,
to stop
yeah.
us from.
No.
Getting up that far.
Yeah.
Or is there an opportunity to widen the lane to make it easier to maintain?
It was widened, just so we could put fan guns, we literally blew snow, put the guns like at second and blew up and initially, that's harder to do. It's just such a tight tight area. If you wanted to cut away all the islands and I think you'd lose the appeal of first, second, third, fourth exits. I personally wouldn't want to see that, but
Those are milestones that kids look forward to. I made it to third, yeah. And what would you do at Tankathon? Yeah, exactly.
And I would say that this last couple of years is the most snow I've seen the tow line in the 12 years I've been here. There's a lot of snow on that tow line. Yeah.
The question about like sledding. Do you charge for that or? is
No, we
it-
don't. And it's actually a state law that it would, like, we would lose our recreation immunity, that is what it's covered under for free and open.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah.
No charging for sledding.
If you charge $1, you can do that. Yeah.
If you charge to rent the sled.
But we have looked into that before, and anything you charge.
We need a livery and sled sticker.
There you go, I love it. Let's be sled free or die.
There you go.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So good, any other winter comments before we pivot to other seasons of the year?
I'll just add, talking about Marcus's comment about a vision or a mission. I think that has a lot to do with the future of this place. And if there's not a common understanding of what the vision is or mission, then it's gonna be a lot of opinions. And when you look at, if it's been at 5,000 skier visits for the last 10 years and people are content with that, then that will impact our decisions, right? If we're content with making the 25,000 a year, then that will impact decisions, and if we're not looking to get any more than that, or the mission plays a lot into our barometer of how well we're doing, or how well the next capital improvement plan is going to be, or how we're looking at diversifying revenue streams, or investing in snowmaking, or all of those things. And it plays a lot of keeping going.
Tammy, if I may, what was the numbers that you gave last week as regard to the total enrollment at the school?
In from 1991, I believe it was, Christine, my oldest, started school in the brand new elementary school, kindergarten. There were 414, I think it was 404. I think it was 414 students enrolled at Linwood at the time. Why we need a bigger school. This year we have 260. So that's why our numbers on kids are going down. They're going down everywhere, not just in the Kanc, but at school everywhere. And we could get into another 8-hour discussion on why, but let's not tonight. So yeah.
Well, I think the other part of the mission discussion is, that this facility is well known, but it's still one of the best kept secrets too. I mean, if you want to aggressively go after income and push it to non-residents, that's a whole other animal. But you're gonna be cognizant, there's the rough and the smooth goes with that. All of a sudden you're inundated and there's
Right.
1,000 people here on a Saturday afternoon, and it takes 20 minutes to get back on the road. So I think, there's balancing of that mission. As you said, if you're content with what's here, with some minor improvements, then that's maybe the general consensus, and great. But if there's an appetite for something bigger, better, different, then that takes a different outlook. Yes, Mark.
About 30 years ago, when they decided to, or 20 years, whatever, it is, would snow make it in, there was also talk about the road tow. And a couple of decisions was, A, the cost of putting in a chairlift was so expensive. All right. B, it takes more than one person to run it. All right, this was for the local kids. All right, and if somebody didn't like the rope tow, go Loon. All right, this is for the kids. If we start doing anything bigger, nicer, and more comfortable, we're gonna get all the tourists in here, and our poor kids are gonna be shoved out. So we gotta keep that in mind.
I agree.
Good point.
And then to your point, good point, if that's the mission, which is awesome, I think it's a great mission. I was always under the impression that sometimes like we were trying to diversify our revenue. But if we're not, which is fine, like what Kevin said, if it's our mission to serve that 5,000 skier visits and we can financially do it because we have the tax base to do it because of our second homeowners, well then sweet, more power to us, right?
There is usually the discussion at budget time. from the members of the budget committee that want to see more revenue and
I guess maybe that's where I
a
heard
little
it.
bit of demanding more revenue and whatnot, and there are mixed feelings about that. Some people really want more revenue. Many more want it to be for the local kids. You know, and you said that there's a lot of parents that don't ski with the kids here. When a 2-year-old skis down and yells, "Mom, I pooped, I need a diaper change." That 2-year-old can get to the top and down again, and the parent can't, well, maybe they don't need to ski here. That's, yeah.
John,
I don't know if you guys remember, probably what, 10 years ago, when magazine called so close to the motherhood from the Kanc ski area. They put it out there to every Massachusetts person there is, which is fine, it's here for everybody.
No, it's not.
to enjoy it. But the next weekend, this place was so full of tourists, the local kids went home, they weren't gonna ski.
Actually, our local kids were getting literally beat up, bloody noses and everything else, because there were so many other.
Good advertising,
non-locals.
up to the public, which is what you want to do, is fine, but all the local kids go home, it ain't Loon, it's never gonna be Loon, and it should be Loon. It's here for our kids to enjoy themselves, they wanna bring a friend, but I think that experience, I mean, if I'm sorry, I think, you know, there's no local kids in the building. They all went home and said, we'll come back in a few weeks when this boils over.
It was a nightmare for the
They
season.
all went home the next weekend.
Or the $250 jacket get greasy.
No,
$100 gloves, yeah, exactly, yeah.
but I think.
I remember that, it was a nightmare.
Yeah. it's been-
One thing we should remember too, is that, you know, the expenses for this operation are split with our friends from Woodstock. So obviously Cheryl and her board has a say in this too. It's not just the Lincoln residents, it's the Woodstock residents also that share in the expenses. So obviously they've got a say in the future of this. Cheryl?
I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. The operating expenses are shared with Woodstock, which is awesome. And the best thing about the Kanc is the kids here, none of them care or even know who's from Woodstock and who's from Lincoln, which is the best thing in my mind. I love that. The capital expenses are borne by Lincoln only because we get all of the revenue. Woodstock gets no revenue and they're responsible for none of the capital. Just the operating expenses are split 50-50.
Yes, Jim.
I think if we're looking at improvements overall, I mean, we're not getting a new building built this year. And I literally have no idea what the operations like in the summer, I can only imagine. A lot of kids, not a lot of space. But what Marcus was saying, that this isn't really much of anything without that, that seems a lot more achievable in the now. Some snow guns, some improvement on that end, some more effort on the snowmaking end early. So it feels like we should try to be a little more directed in our decision making, and yes, something needs to happen with this building, you know, that's gonna take some time. To figure out exactly what that looked like, then get it all approved, and then get that built, so that should certainly be something that's in discussions and maybe specific meetings for that. But I also feel like, you know, summer's over, ski season's almost here, and if we want to address some of that stuff, that sort of should jump to the front while we're working on the other end of things. And I certainly appreciate the fact that something needs to be done for the summer program, but it's gonna be the week before Christmas all of a sudden, and nothing, you know, has been done, if we don't have some sort of direction. So I think maybe moving in the direction of improving some snowmaking, so we know we can get open, and then maybe some discussions of like how to set up, what the kitchen needs for this year. I'm sure we can negotiate without any sort of legal issues, people fixing a cabinet or moving some stuff around, not a lot can be done in the bathrooms by then. But maybe the upstairs and some kitchen stuff, we figured out before the start of the season. And I'm sure Marcus and Brian put a lot of info out there towards us on what we should do to make sure our snowmaking is as best as it can be. And then as the season progresses and we have a ton of snow and it's beautiful in the spring, maybe some discussion of how can we grab a few extra weekends? Is anyone available to cover those? It's not that hard to become a town employee, I know that much. Right? If you volunteer behind that counter, I think you're hired. And maybe you don't have to do food on those last few weekends, if that's a problem, or maybe you can only go a third. And maybe that's a non-issue, maybe we don't have enough snow for that, so just keeping that stuff in mind and saying, let's have a meeting midway through winter and see what spring might look like, or, you know, and in the now, figuring out what needs to happen to get snow on the hill and what needs to happen to make this building a better experience for the winter.
Jim, I would just add one thing is, it seemed like the biggest, correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, hardest thing was a tow hut operator. It seemed like if we ran into staffing problems, it doesn't necessarily was here or the patrol. But it seemed like we were short on tow hut operators, but they need to be trained. We can't just all of a sudden show up one day and be like, go do it.
Which Jim jokes, but he was trained.
That's awesome, but
But
like,
it wasn't hard to
well, what I guess what I'm saying is like to say also one of the improvements we can do is get some more people to get their first aid, right? It's community first aid to be a patrol here. And to get trained on the tow hut. If we could get a couple more of those, that would be pretty awesome.
However, we've lost our awesome hot person this year.
Yeah.
So we don't care anymore. So,
I'm not coming back.
yeah, no, I agree. So that might be an issue this year, maybe. So,
So it sounds as though there's low hanging fruit that can easily be captured that maybe has low dollar impact, which may not be implemented relatively. The downside is of municipalities is there's a cycle that goes with everything. And, you know, getting 2 bites at the cake often fails historically with municipalities. So I think if there's that low hanging fruit with low income or low budgetary impact is achievable, I think there wants to be some strategic thinking gone into what's the big ask, right?
long-term budgeting.
Is it snowmaking? Is it a building? Is it all of it? Because I think that's something that has to be crafted well, that message going out to residents to actually get the bottom line. Otherwise, it will just be a lot of little, right, fix a cabinet door, patch a bathroom or something, and there'll be no significant change, which if that's the aspirations, back to the goal, if that's the goal, that's okay. But I think people just need to be kind of cognizant of that cycle that municipalities go through to actually get into that, get a big dollar, get the ask, get approval.
Taking time, what you're saying.
Right, I mean, and this is the infancy of this process.
Right.
Is to try and get as much information from the public as possible to say, hey, this seemed to be the consensus of the community is to go in this direction. And that's the purpose of why we're here.
And I just wanted to add, we have a separate CIP already set up for snowing, that we've already, Ryan's been meeting with, Kanc on what would work best, and there's money. I think Paul can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but each year, each cycle, a small piece is put towards when we know we need to replace each of the snow vents. So that's always in our forefront of what's the new technology and how can it make it better, and like with Ryan doing the pump and compressor now, you know, things like that. So during the off season, I don't want to think that we're just waiting for us to open and then say, oh, we could have done this.
I want to add to the budgeting part of it. We know we need to do some things in this building. Do we do them now? Do we pour a new floor to cover the rebar that's coming through? Do we add on to our existing bathrooms? And do we fix a cabinet and replace a door and put up a new light, whatever they are? And skate along for the next 10 years? Or do we budget some money this year, coming in for a March meeting, for engineering to look at adding on to this building or replacing it, whatever is more cost effective, whatever everybody wants. That would just be engineering and plans and whatnot for 2024. So then 2025, you'd have to go back to the public to get a bond or something else. That would go to bid in 25 to hopefully maybe start building in 26 or 27. So, I mean, I get it, that's not the immediate need. It's gonna be an immediate need in 3 or 4 years. Do we put on a deck so we have a better viewing of the ski hill? Do we pour something on top of the floor we have now? Or do we wait and not spend that extra money knowing that in 3 years, we're gonna do something bigger and better or not? I'm not an engineer. I know that it's rebar coming through the floor, but I don't know why. I don't know what it would take to cover it. I don't know what it costs to build a bathroom. That's not me. I just don't know. There's other people here that know building and things more than I would. I was looking for more, what do we do with this building? Not just for winter, Although that's a huge important part of it, but summer as well, it's definitely not adequate for our summer program, not even close to adequate for our summer program.
We do something in the middle where we build that pavilion that eases the traffic in here for a little bit, but also gives us a winter activity.
Yes,
It's like in the meantime, so it's not quite that multi-million-dollar thing here.
right,
Well, probably pavilion is more expensive than I think, but a pavilion that would help ease this here, but then also gave an extra winter activity as well.
yes, I think that's a great idea. So then do we, going from there, we know we need to do something with the kitchen no matter what it is. Do we reconfigure the kitchen and build the pavilion attached to the building? So that you can serve out of the kitchen for lunchtime, and they can sit out there at a picnic table. Or not, do we put it way out on the other end of the field away from the building? Those are the things that that we need input on.
I think you gotta be careful of building anything close to this building before you have an ultimate plan.
Right.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Tara, I wonder if you could just touch on some of the summer needs that you've experienced the last couple of years.
Sure, and actually, a lot of my summer camp staff is younger, so they weren't comfortable coming and speaking before this, but, new puppies was one of their top demands, but I've already actually. Can I call you out on it? Mike Reardon's agreed to work with us on building some of those, so that could be a low hanging fruit that we could fix for this winter as well. A larger main room, like we said, when we had, I'm gonna say easily 80 to 100 people here that last end of camp barbecue. And it poured that day, so we had the fire department cooking, we had both camps here to do a barbecue. And we wanted to do the talent show inside as well, so it meant breaking down the 10 tables, so we would have room to do the other activities. Luckily, the sun came out just in time and it all, but we were like, that's one of the other, like this room right here is fire rated for 94 people. My safety 2 type A brain knows that we easily have 150 at some of our bigger events. And it's tight and cozy and comfy and everybody screams over each other's head and it works. Should it work that way forever? And that's what we want everybody to decide. Like, that's not up for us to make that decision. That's what, like, the bathrooms, like, I know we've discussed that before, is, you know, when you have that many people in one facility and lines waiting for 2 bathrooms and
Kids trying to change in the summer because they got soaking
they're
wet.
heading to Echo Lake in 10 minutes and they, oh yeah, I don't have my bathing suit on, you know, it's just the last minute breaks we get.
Or a little John Doe that can't go to the bathroom with the door shut.
Right,
Or you get a July like we had and it rains every
Right.
single day.
Yeah.
Right.
It's filled every single day.
Right,
one of the other things, like Ryan went and helped Abenaki, so got to check out their new facility. And one of the things he was impressed with is that they have a double door entry. So it's not like that traffic jam at the door to get out. It's, you know, you're going in, you're going out, and it's a flow. They also have their kitchen located as far away from that entry point, so that that's not bottlenecking at the entry as well. Again, we've made it work. The kids know this is, you know, how they come in and do things, but it's things when you start looking to the future is like, if we started from scratch, how would we tweak this and change this and make it better? And that's, you know.
So to address the bathroom problem, we're gonna call it a Loon and a number of other mountains had very nice trailers with bathroom facilities. So they weren't the regular porta potty. They were heated, had running water, and there were several units in the trailer. And I wonder if that was something that, you know, doesn't require any construction and it's comfortable. And pull it right up there.
Yeah, and depending on what the cost is, because I'm sure they're.
You have that sort of 100 games.
Yeah, we own a couple of them that stay there all year round. I mean, it's.
Oh, so you purchased them to.
so we'll just borrow them from Luna, not
Yeah, right.
return them.
You got a trailer, Mitch?
Absolutely. Where do you keep them?
Yeah.
Again, I would suggest that's a short-term solution, because that would probably
Right,
likely be prohibitively expensive to run that for 20 years.
Right,
Well, if you're running for 13 weeks or January, February.
Or
Right.
two
But it's summer.
choices, so,
it's
yeah.
just-
One of the other things that we started adult softball back up this summer, and one of the comments we heard was, it works right now because we can lock the building inside, but it would be nice on a nice weekend with nothing going on, not having to have staff unlock the bathrooms, but having the bathrooms be accessible to the public when they come to use the park, you know, so that it's, whether it's, you know, a coded entry that's time unlocked, or, you know, there's different options we could do, but that was one of the things that came up as well, that is it a nice to have or a need, you know, that's what we were hoping the community would help us to say.
Does anybody ask the kids what they wanna improve on?
So that was,
Just-
essentially my summer staff is age 14 to 20, so, but yeah, I mean,
What do the kids want?
we could have any.
What do them?
Marcus, in the wintertime, I just hear more park features, more park features, more park features. When I'm
I
patrolling,
think there should be way more events,
Mm.
that would be a draw, but you gotta get open, you gotta get, the parks are, jumps are snow intensive and.
and as a patrol, that's what I could tell them, like, hey, it's coming, guys, Ryan's doing his best, like, we don't have good weather, but that's, I mean, if you ask me, that's what, as a patrolman, that's what a lot of kids were asked for. When's the box going in? When's the box going in? When's the box going in?
When's Papoose opening is the
When-
number one question.
So one has to be the word, that's another big question, yeah.
I have 3 grandkids that go to the summer camp program, and their biggest thing was when it's raining, they want to be able to eat in the dugouts. So they want to be able to be outside even if it's raining, which is the covered pavilion.
But I would say too, if we're gonna put the time and money into that, diversifying it, so it can be ice skating, because not every kid wants to ski, and if we're looking to like promote the health and wellness of the kids in town during the winter, like the idea is getting them outside and being active, so sledding now, ice skating, yep, and skiing would be great.
Agreed.
And you do Nordic trails too, around, like, just even a loop around the field.
Yeah.
And we did that last year, actually, Cheryl brought it to Ryan's attention, and he said, yeah, that's an easy one, and
Yeah.
went out and did it. I think a couple people, I don't know about Heather, but I think we snowshoed it a couple times.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think with what went on tonight, a lot of good things come up that people said, oh, I didn't thought of that, I didn't thought of that, but I think. One thing we gotta remember, this was built by local people that are very talented. We don't have to waste money engineering things and all that with the talent we have in town, we should take advantage of it. That's how this place was built, right? I think we discussed a lot of good things, but I think it's time to break down into groups of which part you like to do. Summer camp, the grooming part, the snowmaking part, the trails and all that, to get more detail of the people that are interested in it, because we talked about a lot of things that we could have went farther and farther. We'll be here all night. And I think that's what has to happen.
it's OJ.
There's a perfect segue with some of the comments I wanted to make, is I'm kind of seeing a two-part result coming out of this meeting. I know there's another one to follow. But I'm wondering if we should, as a group, look at the shorter term things that this group finds important and prioritize them. And some of the things I heard was you know, the changing or increasing snow guns, making some operational changes, certainly the pavilion, for both seasons, doing something with the bathrooms, both increasing the size and allowing them to be open from the outside unlocked, making some building modifications to keep this building going for however many more years we do it, including putting a deck out front if that's you know, still an option. And then I see the other side is looking more long-term, going back to what Kevin said earlier about a mission statement. You know, in the political arena, things change as your elected officials change. All right, whether that be the selectmen, budget committee, CIP committee, you know, so we might all sit here and get all excited about the $2 million building. All right, and in 3 years is a whole different governing body, and they'll say, yeah, that's not gonna happen. I think that the long-term thing needs to be bought into over time by a large base of people. And I think it needs to be realistic. I don't see a $2 million building being here, like, in my lifetime anyway. But what is the mission of this place?
Exactly.
What is?
Sorry, she said overruled.
Oh, I said, thank God.
A mission statement coming from the combined communities, which would help, you know, guide the future generations of selectmen, budget committees, CIP committees, to buy into the longer term plan of here. And I think that that's important, also, but I think that the short term things, like, you know, if we're looking at getting a pavilion in here, we need to start moving on that fairly quickly. Or snow guns or whatever else is on that short term list, but I kind of see it as the short term thing we need to prioritize. And then go for the mission statement, so that it's like a community, it's like a master plan for the planning board. It's like, you know, that's the guiding statement of, or will be the guiding statement of the recreation for this town. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yes, Paul.
I asked my grandson before I came over here about this meeting tonight. And I asked him if his guardian said, asked him what he would like to see done over here. And he said, keep it the same. He said, all of us kids like it small over there. We don't like a whole bunch of people over there. He said, you know, all the sorts of kids can go up in the little corner of the wood and kids come in from the snack bar and do this and do that. So I'd like to see more input from the children first, because we have all these adults here tonight. No kids. And let them go. I mean, well, they'll come down outside, maybe. There's a lot of things I think that haven't been looked at. I mean, you know, we got the riverfront park. I think consolidation of the riverfront park with the Kanc area, the services that may be able to provide, and the space that may be able to provide, and what we can do down there. I think, as Marcus said, the kids are coming here to ski, you know, and in the wintertime, you really got to put it into the product. However, I'm concerned, just that if you ask anybody from Moon, they'll tell you, if you make it bigger or make it better, they will come. So your numbers will grow as that. So that's the fine line. You know, you can make it as big and as better and as beautiful as you want, but the more you make it that way, the more people are going to come. So then you got to look at how big do you want it to be. So that's why I asked my grandson. I said, you know, when would you like to see so much? See it better over there? See it bigger, and a new building or something like that? More snow, more this. He says, maybe more snow. He said, but you know, he said, we really don't. He said, you know, us kids like to go up on our own. He says, and that's where he came from, right? Tonight, what I'm hearing is about hearing from all the adults about what they think it needs to be, and I haven't heard a lot about. Did anyone ask the children? Do they want it the same? Do they want it bigger? You know, maybe they like it, but maybe they like it because it only has that. Maybe they know it keeps people away. You know, it doesn't make it so big. So children are pretty smart. Give them the time to talk to them.
Yes,
I wouldn't let my son come because he had lots to say. And they love to ski at the Kanc, and they love to ski race at the Kanc, and they like to go off the dumps at the Kanc. Carter's thing, he's like, you don't want it to get too overrun with tourists. You know, he thinks about that, but he also loves when he gets to share it with a friend from out of town, or when LRT has a night here. He takes such pride in this place being so full of magic all the time. And when another kid, maybe they're from Massachusetts and their parents pay a season pass and they use it, you know, 4 times, they come on that night and they're so envious of what our kids get to ski at all the time. And I do think there's money to be made without, you know, finding that balance of not having it be taken over by tourists, but maybe there's a you know, that place, what is it, Abenaki, that place is awesome. And I know like my kids are, like, we can have like a ski race every once in a while at the Kanc, that's like an open race. That like any kid could race at, it could be a Linwood kid, it could be a kid from Ashland. You know, who just wants to give it a whirl, and I think that's the part that is tricky, they just want to ski more, you know, our kids love to ski, they'll ski 24 hours in the day if we let them. And I think some kids, you know, would love to ice skate, some kids would love to sled. And I'm just keeping it going, and I do have real concerns about our school shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so we could bring a few more people in to share the love of what's here. I think it only benefits us long term.
Good, thank you.
We've been going for almost an hour and a half. I'm happy to keep going, but I feel like there's a conclusion coming to this evening, that there's low hanging fruit, as we said, some short term goals that may not have huge financial impact that are achievable. Then there's this grander, bigger picture mission, when what revolves around that to be determined. Is that kind of very broad general summation? We'll go Jen and Vicky.
I just got a question because I wasn't able to make it to some of the other stuff but like, as far as like, I know, I understand like there's insurance aspects of this whole thing, whether it be a summer program, this fee. But like, as far as like people that have licenses, whether it's in carpentry, electric, plumbing, like, so is there some law that like prevents them from like donating their time or materials or anything like that, like, I'm trying to think, I don't wanna, like, is there some type of law that says that you guys, that we can't, like, as a community, because that's what this is, like, all I've heard is that, I'm not from here, but like, that's all I've ever heard since I've come here, is that how, and I agree, because my son's growing up here, but that this is like, so supposed to be supportive of the community. And when I say the community, I mean both Lincoln and Woodstock, just for the record. But like, is there a law? Like, as far as the town is concerned, or between the town and insurance companies, that that people can't, there are, like somebody else mentioned it earlier, there are a lot of people that have, there's tradesmen and there's people that would be willing to give their time, or even like stand behind the counter when you're open, like why we can't donate our time, or.
So that was what you missed. Insurance requires anybody that's dealing with money to be over 18 and trained and a staff member. Anybody that's dealing with potential injuries that could result in a lawsuit.
Right.
Has to be trained in at least basic certification for CPR and first aid.
I'm talking about like, but I'm more talking about are like making any like improvements.
Like they do that.
And
Licensed contractors can donate their time
okay,
and
that's what I'm trying.
wire the building or put in plumbing.
Right.
It's that when this was built, it was just a bunch of parents and friends
No,
that
that's
the building up, which was phenomenal. I mean, it's lasted what 50, 60 years. It's amazing. Now we would have to have it, you know, it has to be ADA compliant, so you know, we can't just build a bathroom anymore. However,
No,
you have someone that you could get them to donate their time, we would take it.
there is no law that as long as you're licensed.
As long as everything is compliant, ADA compliant, and you know, it's engineered, safety is a big thing, especially if there's anything above it.
Or fits in a window or.
Right. Licensed contractor or anything like that can.
Right, you
Yeah.
can donate your time or
Right.
whatever, fix the
Right.
problem.
See, I can fix a light switch, not in this building legally.
No, because you don't know.
Exactly.
That's what I was trying to get.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I just wasn't sure where,
Answer your question?
yeah, because I know that it sure came up, but I was like.
Vicky, you have the point?
Just wanted to like reinforce what Aaron had mentioned earlier too. I just, in talking about the mission and the future plans, I don't wanna lose track of the fact that we have like short-term programming things that we could be talking about. And it would be really helpful if we could get more of the stakeholders, the coaches, coaches, employees, people who actually spend their time here and work with kids or ski with kids and stuff to be able to focus on the things that we could do. We're already putting in this big investment to get open, to get the insurance and all that, to make sure that we're actually like, there are some just little changes that wouldn't be earth shattering and wouldn't cost a bunch of money that would make a big difference in terms of what we're able to offer.
Speaking back off that, Vicky, I know there's talk about last year, as far as like the future of a mission and a vision and values. And then having programs be on the same page with operations. There was talk about a Kanc committee and it kind of happened, kind of didn't, was that?
Well, that's what we asked to happen.
Okay.
And this is what happened after we
Got
asked
it.
to happen.
So there was never a formal Kanc committee as far as like starting to work at influencing and forming that mission, vision and values and the interrelationships of programs with operations. Didn't know if there was a committee that was formed or where that was at.
We first wanted to know how the town taxpayers felt about it. Before we create a committee that says, okay, this is what we're doing.
Okay.
How do you feel about it? I feel different, you know what I mean? So
Right.
they need to know how everybody feels before they come down to all right, these 12 people are gonna come up with a plan. Was my understanding of what occurred.
And it's
Some of
also-
but you also,
Yeah.
you already kind of have that committee with the Lincoln Woodstock Friends of Rec. And the Friends of Rec is open to anybody that wants to sit on that committee or be a part of that conversation. And we do help with the programming. We help with fundraising, ideas, operational, we give suggestions and Tara obviously answers to her board of selectmen as well, or Karina. But we certainly welcome folks to join the Friends of Rec and participate in those meetings. We meet.
I won't beg them, I would say.
Yeah.
Or we don't allow them to resign.
Yeah.
You're still technically on.
I know.
But no, we encourage anybody to participate in those, and like we said, we try to put the meetings out there for folks to join. And to be a part of it, so.
And we've had parents come to some of the meetings with some great suggestions.
Yeah.
The new scoreboard here is the result of one of those.
Exactly, yeah.
From one of
Yeah.
those meetings,
And,
right?
and many more that, some of them that I would love to do, but lacking another 6 staff members isn't gonna happen, but, so, I mean, that's. We already have the vehicle, if you will, so.
I think that it's different though.
I think
I
probably.
mean, the Friends of Rec is different. What we were talking about was specifically the ski area and just the ski area, not all the recreation programs. There's a lot of recreation programs, obviously. And there's overlap because they share, physical space and they share a lot of staffing and management. But the ski area was something different that, people had a niche interest in trying to preserve and work towards a mission and work towards the future and thinking about that. And it's not the same thing as the Friends of Rec, which is the whole rec department. Also, the Friends of Rec was like initially started as a fundraising volunteer group with parents. It's not like an advisory board for the operations of the ski area.
Does the Friends of Rec have a ski area task force or group within the?
Yeah.
I don't know, I just wanted.
Yes, yeah,
Alright.
we do, it's right there. We won't let her quit.
I hope they resign from all of my position.
We won't let her.
I'm just here to observe and keep being stuck back in.
So I think, like, before I started, I know that there was a rec commission. I got given the box of stuff and just told that it had, and Mike, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, because. And both Mikes, I think, were originally on that commission. But what I had gotten told was because this department is a municipal department, it's not politically correct, like you can't legally have an advisory board. The advisory board is the board of selectmen, like that's who.
So the board we had was 2 people from Lincoln, 2 people from North Woodstock, selectmen from Lincoln, a selectman from North Woodstock. So we did have the proper things there. We also had it when Tony Murray was here, so we had to keep an eye on
Yeah.
it, right? So that was the reason, but it wasn't to keep an eye on Tony as much as it was to make sure that community was getting a good rec department thing, and to give Tony ideas, and plus, if it worked out well, most of the people on it, Mike and I did more work than Tony did, you know, and it was good. So, but, that should have never dissolved, because the people would go to that rec department and talk, and they met twice a month. You know, and it was good. Now, the Friends of Rec was not started to do that. And the Friends of Rec was started that if somebody wanted to give money to the ski slope, the baseball, whatever, it would go to the Friends of Rec, so it didn't go into the town common budget. Which baseball or the ski area would never see. That is what the Friends of Rec was started for.
I think what happened, they evolved into more of an
Right,
advisory.
it's involved into like a fundraising
Yeah.
arm of
Yeah.
basically. is what
But the
it
money
is.
don't have to go to the town, it stays here and you
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Doesn't go to California, don't go out west, it stays here.
And as people compare to Abenaki, if you look at the Friends of Abenaki and the Wolfboro money that they get, it's night and day. They get some crazy money.
Was that the second homeowner?
In the Lakes region, in Wolfboro.
That come up only in the summertime? Or they come in the winter?
It's all the above, but they've
What
got,
about their ski visits are?
it's a good question. You know, that's a municipal run area with snowmaking. It's thriving.
Their
It's a nice
snowmaking
little
goes
hill.
relatively recent, because I wanna say like 10, 15 years ago, they were coming here every winter and they didn't have snowmaking, so they were going through some of the same struggles that we went
Yeah.
through in the 80s. that
There-
year.
A lot of kids that competed with our kids that came from there, then they put in snowmaking and started having events there, and it's.
Yeah.
They got quite a backing.
I wonder if some of that fundraising, like you said, I wonder if it came with strings. Meaning like if our mission is to keep this local and local kids.
Right.
Doesn't sound like that money came from locals. Came from second homeowners, and I didn't know if it came with strings with how much the second homeowners used it.
It's a good question.
Okay, but if the second homeowner is a taxpayer, how can you stop them from coming to the Kanc Rec and ski?
Very
We
true.
don't.
You can't. But also, second homeowners is something maybe the Friends of Rec has to look into with a nice little paper that asks us for donations. Because a lot of them have a lot of money. And that would help us out here drastically.
A lot of people are talking about Abenaki, and I've gone there the last few years for a race. It's a wonderful building facility, but doesn't even come close to what we have here. And we have a better hill, better grooming. It's like, and that's, we're talking about what's outside here, you know, that's really, and I'm saying that gives me chills, just like so many different options and everything. Yes, we can grow, but we have that. We have the hill, we're getting, you know, talking about snowmaking, other things, full season, it's really exciting, and Abenaki just went through this, you know, like I think it's 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, if you build it, they will come, you know, it's they probably have weddings there, it's like a hotel, it's, I don't think we want that.
No,
No, but it's great, there are improvements, they did make a lot of improvements to the hill, and it has changed. Definitely the types of skiers, freestyle, you know, that they get off the rope toe on both sides. They have a couple different rope toes, there's a beginner little rope toe, there's little things that they'll make it look like a rope toe when you look up the hill. You look down and it looks like you're looking at a resort. Which I think we still want to keep this, you know, we're a logging town, you know. We want it to look, we want it to be home,
Linwood Lumberjacks.
yeah.
We're good, it's a little after 8 o'clock, I would kind of respectfully suggest that we adjourn for this evening. And then we can pick up more conversation, the plan is October 5th to another just public session, people who are perhaps able to make it tonight to share their thoughts. Everyone's welcome to come back, we can continue some of similar discussion, but I think the goal is to just gain as much public input as possible, such that then can inform what are the next steps.
I have one last question, but yes, regarding, well, the snowmaking was talking about the, I guess, short term project. And Terry, you mentioned that there's capital improvement plan. What does that look like year to year? Is there?
We're happy to share that, it's
Is
a
it
public
like,
document, but basically it breaks it down, every piece of equipment we have here. That's over $10,000 in expense and breaks it out into like a almost a payment plan for, like, if you
Replacement
were gonna
schedule.
replace your.
If we know we need one in 10
Yeah.
years, it's $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
So that in 10 years, we can buy it, and we don't have to borrow.
And there's also facilities.
For the most,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, but for the most part, that's how it works.
But from a evolution or expansion of that technology, that is. Ken and Ryan are looking at
Yeah.
that, what is that?
And there are, like what we, so we'll say we budget to replace the SMI gun this year. And, you know, we've got like, so the roto engine at the top, might be a better example, that's already been budgeted to be replaced. Have we replaced it? No, because we don't need to yet, but we have the money in the plan to fund it. So the guns are on a rotating basis so that we don't need to replace all three of them on 1 year. And obviously updating them with better technology every time it comes around. So that's what they're talking about is, do we want to go with full guns? And Ryan, right now, the discussion is, I don't think we do, because we lose the flexibility of moving them around the slope like we like to do. So they're looking at, you know, this is, Ken's offered to let us try whatever we want, so we like that idea as well. And he's, you know, helped with the pump and compressor and having that local, like you said, Jen, anytime we can get a licensed person that is that their expertise and they're willing to come and work with us on it, we definitely.
So just picking up on that, it sounds like there's a cycle to replace, but let's say the conclusion of this is, hey, we wanna throw $200,000 more at snowmaking. What's the mechanics of getting that 200,000?
It's still a municipal budget process, so we have a CIP committee, a capital improvements committee, they start meeting in the summer, July months, Paul Bowden's on it, he's here as well, Jack Bailey as well as myself. It's a request by the department heads to the CIP committee, they then make a decision based on their judgment on what projects they feel are, you know, deserve funding, I guess, and then that goes.
But how quickly, you know, it's.
Essentially, the
We may want it
projects, yeah,
today, but they may say.
projects are proposed in the summer, they don't get funded to the following March.
And they try to keep the whole, they don't decide what gets funding and doesn't for the most part.
We try to have a, yeah,
But they try to balance it so that we are raising $1 million to put in our CIP every year, not 10 million this year and 50,000 next year, and so that the tax rate does this. We try to keep it in an even, you know, with the percentage increase for inflation.
but to give you an example, there's 107 projects on that list, so the Kanc only consumes 6 of those line items, you know, for equipment, and then the facility has its own line item, obviously, but it's not an instantaneous process, that's something that's proposed in the summer and it won't be funded to the following spring. And then when town meeting approves it, that money actually doesn't go into those accounts until the following December. So it's
When tax bills come in.
it's essentially a 1.5-year process to get cash in hand.
So if someone donated to Friends of Rec to say, here's $200,000 to buy X snowmaking equipment, Friends of Rec could say.
Friends of Rec is a 501c3,
You
they're
skip
their
that
own money.
process, they
You
just
skip
stop.
that.
You don't say.
Yeah.
You don't say.
Which is a big part of the Friends of Rec as far as the summer programming goes. Gross budgeting, you have to gross budget everything. And we don't know from year to year, and then things have to change. Field trips for the kids. So the Friends of Rec pays for all of the field trips. The money comes in, well, the parents pay for it. But it gets deposited to the Friends of Rec, and then they pay it out every field trip so that it can be specific. We would have to gross budget for 55 kids to go to Santa's Village. Well, only 32 show up. We still have to budget for 55, so that is gonna be leftover, and it muddies the waters of municipal budgets.
His question, Kevin's question, if someone was to donate a large sum of money to Friends of Rec, can they do that as a specific specific
Yes,
gift and say, I want this to go to,
Snowmaking
so they
only,
can do that?
yes.
Okay.
It happens a lot, like we
We
get,
got-
like,
yeah.
I wanna fund 6 camp scholarships,
Yeah.
and that's how it goes.
I want a
So,
billboard with my name on it.
Yeah.
I want a flagpole.
Yeah.
Yep. We get several donations every year that here's, X amount of dollars, I wanna buy tickets for local kids, season passes for local kids only. Skis and lunches, I wanted to sponsor lunches, and summer camp's another big one. We have 5 kids at summer camp this past year, so, yeah, we do get specific donations that have to be used for specific things.
And the CIP committee, as they started, because I'm a member of it, and Paul's the chairperson of it. I mean, it's like your own home. Some year you're gonna need an oil burner, you're gonna need a new roof, you're gonna need to change the plumbing here, you're gonna need a new vehicle. So you start putting away in a savings plan, and that's what basically the CIP is. We don't fund the full cost of that implement or that piece of equipment right now. We start putting money away for the next 6 or 7 years, and then even beyond. But at least it's there, and it's not being, like Tammy said, $10 million in 1 year and $50,000 the next year. It's a stagnant, not stagnant, it increases with need. But every single department head comes before us and says, okay, here's what I'm gonna need. Our questions as board members are, why do you need it? What's the life expectancy of that loader that you've got? Well, it's 12 years and it's on year 10. So we're gonna start, or in year 5, we start putting money away because it's only got a life expectancy of 12 years. So, it's important that the same thing here, Tara comes before us and puts money away for different items that she's gonna need.
And when it gets close, they get updated prices too. The 10 years ago, we got a snow gun that cost $5,000, and 10 years later, that same snow gun with the new technology is $12,000. So it's, even though we started budgeting 5, because that was a replacement half of the time, it's adjusted over the years and increased for current pricing.
Run the ball, that's all that's worth.
But also in that CIP, there is the ability, because it's not governed by every line item, it's governed by the bottom line of the CIP. So the town can, if there are things that are needed now, and there's money budgeted in the CIP, it can be moved to that. If there were, for instance, if there was snowmaking needs right now, and there was some money that was budgeted in CIP, it could be moved to that. It's not restricted by just every single one line item. So from what I'm hearing tonight, it sounds like there's some immediate needs that may not be the low hanging fruit. That may not be that expensive, or you might be able to get some local talent to do, and maybe you could buy the terrace for them. I'm sure things like that can be facilitated through the current CIP.
Just to clarify though, Paul, it is restricted based on the account that the money is put into.
Right.
So there's a
line item of the bank grant.
right, but we can't take highway money and spend it on rec equipment. We can't take police money and spend, so it is restrictive in the fact that whatever capital reserve account that it's in, that's how the money has to be spent.
Right.
But the projects that are in that account or could that or make up that account can be interchanged.
Right. And so what you've already budgeted for underneath Kanc correct CIP line items. If you had an urgent need, you could request that, and then you could come back in and refund it or re-request it, reappropriate it for the following year.
Sure.
Say, look, we want to do this, so we did that this year, and then we can, we still need those items, but we, we need to fund that again this year. So some of the things I'm hearing tonight, depending on what the monies are that are in there, could possibly be done.
And that's what we did with ski lights. When we redid the lights, that's what we did, was moved it from.
Move money,
Yeah.
move, yeah,
Yeah.
took it from somebody else.
I'd like to say thanks for doing this. This was cool. It was really helpful.
Well, being here, I mean, we don't get this attention that a select.
Yeah.
So-
And just as an aside too, if anybody has any comments or questions or anything, stand up there and ring.
Yeah.
I got it.